One talk. United we stand up, divided we fall. Unity is strength. United we stand up, united we stand up, divided we fall. Unity is strength. United we stand up. Oh.
United we stand up, divided we fall. Unity is strength. United we stand up, united we stand up, divided we fall. Unity is strength. United we stand up. Oh.
My dear brothers, let's come together. Two cannot walk unless they agree. My dear brothers, let's come together. Peace cannot reign unless there is love. Oh, my dear sisters, let us stand united. Hold hands together, help one another. United we stand, divided we all shall fall.
I'm coming back. I'm coming to kick you down. I'm coming to dance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this volcanic edition of Chat Night Africa. Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. On Chat Night Africa today, we have broadcast transmission director Mumbalingwa. This is Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Social media director and chief editor, we have in Lagos live Zay Roger Fool. This is Chat Night Africa Jaunty Volcanic Edition. Studio manager Beatrice Feminine. Production supervisor Dr. B Tatsong Famundam. Production assistants Emmanuel Wayindi, John Tanto, Uncle Lord Benson at Frontier Street, Bamenda. Special assistant to the presenter of Chat Night Africa, Daniel Eno. This is Chat Night Africa. Chat Night Africa is compiled and presented by Divine and Chamukan. On Chat Night Africa today, I told you the temperature is going to be very, very high. And that's why we are bringing in Vomomsi live from Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Vomomsi from Michigan.
Hello.
This is Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back. We're gonna get down. We're gonna get down. We're gonna dance.
And the man who is coming to cross-examine Dr. Stella Emmanuel after her viral videos touting the virtues of hydroxychloroquine. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Dr. Kenneth Farmer. Yes, this is the man who is going to, like a prosecuting lawyer, cross-examine all the stories, all the media blitz about declarations that Dr. Stella Emanuel made recently about the virtues of COVID, the virtues of hydroxychloroquine. What is the truth? What is the myth? What are the conspiracy theories? We will hear from this physician. This is Chat Night Africa. Dr. Kenneth Former, have you seen a COVID-19 patient at all?
Yes, I've seen several of them.
Have you given hydroxychloroquine to the patients?
Yes, I've given hydroxychloroquine before.
Did you watch
to 2,000 of them? So,
did you watch Dr. Stella Emanuel's videos touting the virtues of hydroxychloroquine?
Yeah, I did watch the videos. It was painful to watch to the end, but I watched them.
Are you, as a physician, concerned about her statements?
I am concerned with the way the statement was passed across, and I'm concerned with the implications of this statement. And I feel it has a safety implication to everyone who listens to it and to the American people and the world at large.
This is Chat Night Africa. As you must have noticed, there will be fireworks on the platform today on the show. As you can see already, we have a thermostat in the house. We thought that when the temperature is getting very, very high beyond healthy standards, there has to be a thermostat to regulate the temperature on the airwaves, the temperature in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you for watching in your numbers. My name is Divine Nchamukong. Once again, I bring on the platform our friend from Michigan. This is Vemomse, the guy who will be the temperature regulator at Chat Night Africa today. Vemomse happens to be a senior healthcare professional, and I am sure if I ask him questions about COVID-19, he had once contracted the virus, he would tell you tons of stories about his experience, what he lived through, he and his family lived through in Michigan. I'm going to, before we hear some notes of the songs that you have played, have you make some opening remarks on the show, which promises to be jaunty this evening. Charles Vemomse, you have the blank check now, sir.
Hello. This is Vemomse, Afro pop artist, gospel artist, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be in Chat Night Africa. I mean, this is, like you said, the temperature today is very warm. The temperature today is very hot in the show, and I have a lot of things to share, and I know the doctor also have a lot of things to share. And like you said, I'm a medical professional. Also, I'm a director, and you know, I do a lot of things. I do music, and you know, so today we have a lot of things to share on the show. So please don't miss. Stay tuned. Don't touch the dial. Stay tuned.
Well, Charles Vemomse, I want to suggest that probably you check your connections again, because your pictures a little bit snowy and bouncy. You may want to check that. While I am check your connections, while I am taking Dr. Former, then I'll bring you right back while you correct your connectivity. Now, I'm going to bring on to the platform Dr. Former. Dr. Former, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Sometimes I want to call you a lawyer, medical doctor. And, you know, like we said, COVID-19 has, at the time of this broadcast, killed a little over 152,000 people. Large numbers have also died in other parts of the world. It is therefore understandable that talks about complications and treatment flawed traditional and social media. Some, to be honest with you, are conspiracy theory, and some are facts. Now, unfortunately, both sound convincing. Very, very convincing. Recently, Dr. Stella Emanuel made videos that went viral, categorically touting the virtues of hydroxychloroquine, something dismissed also by a lot of other physicians. Now, what is the truth about hydroxychloroquine and COVID-19? Dr. Kenneth Former, you see now on the platform, is going to respond to statements by Dr. Stella Emanuel. Now, if Dr. Stella Emanuel cross-examined her colleagues, she too expects her statements to come under microscopic scrutiny. The saying goes that what goes around comes around. Dr. Former, welcome to Chat Night Africa.
Oh, thank you very much, Divine. Thank you for giving me this platform. And I'm happy to be here, more of to try to clarify things and also to make sure that our African brothers stay safe and the rest of America stay safe.
Those statements are statements Dr. Stella Emanuel made. Now, there is only one truth to science. Science can never, ever be ambivalent. So how is it that you are saying initially the same thing she said, yet the discussions are as two lines running parallel? Who is telling the truth? Why should somebody believe you as opposed to Dr. Stella Emanuel?
Well, as I said before, I'm pretty here just to make sure that we do believe in what we know right now. In science, you need to be humble enough to know what you know and know what you don't know. So for COVID, there are things we do know. Right now, we know wearing a mask really works. We know getting better testing helps us to be able to identify patients that are sick, be able to have them social distance, make them wear a mask. We do have some therapies out there, but there is no cure for COVID at the moment. We are also working on vaccinations in order to be able to vaccinate people and stop the spread of the disease. So what we know right now is that hydroxychloroquine does not work for hospitalized patients. We have had clinical trials which have been carried out, and we do have the recovery trial that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine, a preview that showed that hydroxychloroquine did not work for patients who had COVID-19. This trial was carried out in England, and there is enough data showing that it doesn't work. There is also the Orchi trial that was done, still showing that hydroxychloroquine does not work for patients who are very sick. And you do have the Solidarity trial that was done, which is actually carried out in multiple countries. And the WHO had to stop it early because they found out that there was no benefit in getting hydroxychloroquine. There is also Tang's trial that was done in China that shows that hydroxychloroquine does not work for severe patients. It's based on this that I say that hydroxychloroquine does not work for severe patients and moderate patients. Now, in the outpatient setting, I would like to say I was an advocate of hydroxychloroquine. I am a scientist. We looked at the possible mechanism of actions of hydroxychloroquine, and we're hoping that it was going to work. Here in New York, in the beginning of the pandemic, in March, we did give hydroxychloroquine to everyone who got into the hospital. We combined it with zinc, and we also combined it with azithromycin, that's Z-Pak. After retrospectively looking at our data, we realized that this hydroxychloroquine did not really make a difference. But we did give it to every single patient that came to our ER because we wanted to help humanity. But as soon as clinical trials started coming out, we started finding out the truth about this data. I know others would ask me, what about the studies of Dr. Raoult? So Dr. Raoult did a very little study, which were the number of people he was dealing with were very small, and thought that hydroxychloroquine works. And this led to France actually allowing the drug to be given for compassionate use, which France withdrew that compassionate use 2 months ago. And right now you can see a lot of people are flashing that video in the social media thinking that video is recent. It's an old video. So those are things people bring about. What about in the outpatient? In the outpatient, it's a bit ambiguous. It's not a miracle cure. Right now, there is no miracle cure available for hydroxychloroquine. Recently, just in the past 2 weeks, we had clinical trials that were revealed. There are two of them that I can talk about. The Skipper trial that came out, that they gave hydroxychloroquine for 5 days and did not see a difference. And the clinical trials are actually gold standards in medicine. Those are the things we believe in. And there is also the trial that just came out from Brazil. It's called the Coalition Trial for COVID-19, which showed no difference between getting hydroxychloroquine and not getting hydroxychloroquine, and those who did not get hydroxychloroquine. So it's very important that for now, the data shows us that hydroxychloroquine does not work. There are other trials that are in the pipeline that we're waiting for the results, but it's not a miracle cure. Usually, if there's a miracle cure, you're going to be able to see the effect once you start running clinical trials. Hydroxychloroquine has also been used for prophylaxis. We did use it in New York, but as soon as data started coming out, I think we got ourselves involved in clinical trials from Mayo Clinic, and the data we have, which was published early last month, also shows that hydroxychloroquine was not better than placebo in preventing people from getting COVID-19. There is also the MIGJAR trial that did not show any benefit. So based on that, I'm not trying to, I love Dr. Stella's passion and also her way of delivering her message, because she's a minister, so she comes across as at times as being very believable. But what I want to say is that from the data we have right now, we cannot advocate for hydroxychloroquine and call it a panacea to COVID-19 and mislead the people to get into getting hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin. So that's what I want to say as a startup to this conversation. I know I'll have a lot of questions coming up.
And if you have a question, please don't call me later after the show is over. I'm going to be publishing the phone number which you can actually dial and either challenge Dr. Former or agree with him. Dr. Former, why are you concerned about the statements by Dr. Stella Emanuel? Why are you concerned?
Well, the reason I'm concerned is because interpreting this period has been a period where we have had multiple publications concerning COVID. It's a pandemic. We have not had a pandemic in the last 100 years. And I think everyone is concerned about this right now, and misinformation can be very detrimental to the health of others. So we have used chloroquine for the past 65 years. That's true. And she made that statement. What is very difficult is when you have a scientist or someone who's a physician who mixes certain amount of scientific truth with things which are not factual. It makes it look, all of it looks factual. We've used it for 65 years. We stopped using it in West Africa. That's Nigeria and Cameroon for the past 25 years because chloroquine was a drug used to treat malaria. That's why it was discovered. It's a derivative of quinine and from the chinquana tree. So it was used to treat malaria, but we had noticed that it had some antiviral properties. That is why it was tested in the first place for COVID, in order to treat COVID. The thing is, it's been long since we even used it in Africa, and we have not used it for a long time because it was no longer effective against malaria. So this drug has not been used. So during the peak of the pandemic, African countries were also looking for this drug. And to claim that you have people who are back home taking it every day, it's not just true, because we have not been used to this drug. And this drug also has some side effects, which if given to the elderly patients without doing what you call an EKG, you could have sudden cardiac death, especially when combined with azithromycin. So that is concerning in itself.
You talk about data, and here is what Dr. Stella Emanuel said. If someone it's a direct quote, if someone treated him, meaning Herman Cain, early with hydroxychloroquine, it's most likely he would not have died. Now, she goes further in that video. Again, direct quote, I have over 400 patients We have treated diabetics, etc. We've treated 87-year-olds and even people aged 97. The studies we did on hydroxychloroquine were done under Dr. Fauci. Why do you, if she's treated 400 people, Dr. Kenneth Former, why do you think that she doesn't have some credibility to talk or to claim that it works? She says she's treated 400 people.
We're living in a country where there is freedom of speech, and the worst thing to do is to suppress speech. And I think not Facebook or anyone would not have taken down her videos, like others would have had time to criticize what she says. If she has treated 400 people, that could be true. So there is something different in the kind of patient she's treating. If I assume she treated 400 people, she's a pediatrician in the first place. I do not understand how she could be treating adult patients. That in itself is not legal, I think so, in the state of Texas. You're not supposed to be treating adult patients when you're trained as a pediatrician. But going back to the statement of her treating 400 people, in the COVID-19 itself, if COVID-19 affects 100 people in an area where there is effective testing, like in Texas right now, among the 100 people who are sick of COVID-19, only 10 of them would develop the severe form of COVID, and only 5 of them would end up in the ICU. So 90% of them will get well, even if you don't give them anything. Now, her setting is a bit specific. She sees people in the outpatient. Those are people who are not even sick at all. Those are people who went and had a COVID test, which was positive. There is no guarantee that they even had to develop a severe form of COVID. So by claiming that you saw asymptomatic people or people who were not very sick and you gave them this combo and they got better, does not necessarily mean this combo actually treated them. What it means is that she did see people who were not very sick and they did not get severe, because COVID itself, 90% of the population are not going to get sick and even severe. Most of them would stay asymptomatic. And if you had even given these patients an M&M or given them a stone to hit their head, they would have gotten better by themselves. Many of us in New York got COVID, but we did not get sick. So it's important to note that claiming that you used a drug to treat someone does not necessarily mean the effect came from the drug. That is why it's important to carry out clinical trials in order to see the true effects of medications. So they are so important. And we have had trials that have come out. Those are the gold standards in medicine. We have 2 clinical trials in the outpatient showing now that hydroxychloroquine does not work. I'm quoting the trials. I am still very optimistic, and we are waiting for more trials to come out. But because of these 2 trials, you cannot make that kind of statement. And it's not the magical panacea we're looking for. If it was, we would have known about it.
Who is sponsoring those trials? Because that was one of our concerns. Could it be interested parties sponsoring some study to achieve a certain conclusion?
That's a very important concern. We do have those concerns all the time. Some of them are sponsored by the WHO. The Solidarity trial was sponsored by the WHO. There was no interest in that trial. There is several of them are sponsored by the NIH, which has no interest other than helping the American people. And you could have some few trials, which for remdesivir, which was sponsored by the company that has the drug. But I want to assure you, azithromycin is made by Pfizer. All these drugs you're talking about, they have certain companies making them. Someone is going to benefit. Even if you decide to give azithromycin, zinc, and you give hydroxychloroquine, someone is going to benefit. That's the fact about it. I'll give you another example. Dexamethasone is a cheap drug, cheaper than hydroxychloroquine. Clinical trials came out showing that it's working. Nobody has gone out in the media and fought against that. Dexa is cheaper, it's available. Those are one of the things we're happy right now that such a trial was done. We do know steroids work. It's a cheap steroid. If you're in Africa, you can get it if you're very sick, and it changes mortality. There's actually a mortality benefit for getting dexamethasone, and it's so cheap. So it's less than for a treatment of dexamethasone to treat a whole patient is less than $1 to treat someone who is in the hospital for a whole course back in Africa, and especially in Nigeria and Cameroon.
This is Chat Night Africa. As I told you, the temperature in the room is beginning to rise in the studio and on the airwaves. I'm going to open the lines at some point so that you can challenge Dr. Kenneth Former if you want to. This is not some political party central committee thing that everybody agrees. You don't have to agree with him. You can challenge him as vigorously as you want. But before we get into all of that, we will be bringing on Vamamsa, who is a powerful gospel. I described him as the thermostat in the room. And so he's going to come on in a moment to present one of his latest releases. It's going to blow you away. But before he comes on, Dr. Former, key question. And I ask you this question because during this broadcast, I'll be quoting extensively Dr. Stella Emanuel's statements that went viral in the videos. She said, ask Dr. Anthony Fauci when he last saw a patient. When was the last time he put a stethoscope on a patient? I'm going to ask you the same question. When did you last see a patient? And how many COVID patients did you see?
I just saw a patient about an hour ago. I'm on call. I was on call today, and I deal with cancer patients. I'll talk a bit about my background. I trained in Cameroon, West Africa. I did general medicine there. I did specialize back home in clinical pathology, so that's a different specialty. I did a master's in public health. I specialized in internal medicine in the US, and I was totally involved with the pandemic. And I'm also now subspecializing in clinical pathology, in hematology and oncology. So how many COVID patients did I see? I saw thousands of COVID patients. I was actually the chief resident, and I actually worked with more than 150 doctors, and I coordinated the response. I was one of those who coordinated the response in my hospital. We saw thousands of COVID patients, and we're in the peak of the pandemic here in New York. We tried everything to keep patients alive. We're lucky that we're one of the few people who used hydroxychloroquine. Then it was allowed for you to use it for emergency use authorization. After using hydroxychloroquine, we realized that it did not actually work the way we wanted it to work. By doing retrospective studies, everyone who got it still got worse, those who were extremely sick. And we could not really decipher if hydroxychloroquine made a difference or not, but we gave it to all our patients. And I can see from this standpoint that those in Texas who have not tried it before think that maybe they are in a disadvantage because they have not had that experience. But I would just want to tell them we need to wait for clinical trial results to come out. Some have come out already, many of them, and they have shown that hydroxychloroquine does not work for moderately sick patients, does not work for severely sick patients. And there are 2 trials now that show that hydroxychloroquine does not work for patients who are asymptomatic and patients who are mildly sick.
This is Chat Night Africa. And now I will invite our friend Vamamsa to come in with something really, really powerful. You will like it. I told you this is Chat Night Africa, and this is one of the latest releases by Vamamsa. Today at Chat Night Africa is the thermostat in the room. Chat Night Africa, information, but also entertainment.
You don't care.
And this is Vamamsa at Chat Night Africa. you that these songs could exit electrocute you.
Enemies don't tire because I don't hammer. My belly people say I go quench like fire. Right before them eyes, I don't hammer.
This is Just Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Pour Murpata Boucher Sakai. Ça commence à chauffer. Il voulait dire ça parti.
Against me shall prosper. You prepare before me, the midst of my enemies. Now why are they dance the God on praise? Cause who God has blessed, no man can curse.
Hello, Madam Peaceful Favor.
I give God all the glory and I give him all the praise. If no be here, put on praise, Baba. Now why are they dance the God on praise? Cause who God has blessed, no man can curse.
This is Just Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I'm your presenter, Divine Chabuko. Move it, 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 move it. Chat Night Africa, Chat Night Africa, Chat Night Africa.
Attention.
Vamamsa. That's the man.
Yes, sir.
That's the man. Let me tell you, man, this song produces 10,000 volts of electricity.
Oh, wow.
I thought you were going to be the thermostat here today, and you're instead generating heat.
Making
I
it more
think, I think it's time for you to go.
Yeah,
Ladies
this
and
way,
gentlemen, this is my friend, my brother, a loving husband. Yeah, I see your wife saying, yes, but mom say on the move. Madam Peaceful Favor. Wow, I knew you'd be there to be the cheerleader.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, come on, I've listened to a lot of your songs, and by the way, I'll be bringing in Dr. Kenneth. We're not done with that discussion, and I'll open the phone lines for you to challenge Dr. Kenneth. Challenge him as vigorously as, because we want to lay this matter to rest. You know, science has one truth. Science cannot have two truths. It's not literary appreciation that some of us did in the university.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Science, 1 + 1 = 2 in science. That's it. It cannot be 3. Okay. So somebody has to be making these things up. And that's why you see, COVID-19 is too important a subject to let some narratives float out there without anyone cross-examining them or the speakers. Because you see, like I say, what goes around comes around. When you cross-examine other people are going to bring you under microscopic examination. That's fair game.
Absolutely.
That's fair game. And I know that Dr. Estelle Emmanuel, this doesn't surprise her, because if you go in the media and make statements, categorical statements, then you're going to be cross-examined just in the same way as you cross-examined your colleagues. Again, that's fair game.
Absolutely.
That's why we're doing the show. And if Dr. Emmanuel, Stella Emmanuel wants to come on my show, she is welcome. I will open the doors wide for her to come on the platform. And my questions will be equally very aggressive, in the same way I'm questioning
Absolutely.
Dr. Kede Foreman. Now, Vomomsi, before we get to music, you caught COVID-19. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, my experience, like the doctor said, there are a lot of statements that he made that I agreed with him, being a medical professional also. What I can say is that my experience is different from everybody's experience. You know what I mean? My experience is different from everybody's experience.
Oh,
So
yes.
what it is when I can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay,
Yes.
so on Friday I worked. The Friday that I worked and I came back feeling sick. So that Friday when I came back home, I felt like I felt a terrible headache, and I also felt some body aches. So I went to sleep that night because I'm not one of those people. Yes, I'm a medical professional, but I'm not one of those people that quickly take medications without finding out what is going on. So that night I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning and I felt like feverish. I felt feverish. So I took my temperature. My temperature was 104, which that prompted me to go and get tested. So because I see COVID patients every day. I see COVID patients. At that time, I had about 60 COVID patients in my building. I was taking care of about 60 COVID patients. So I knew that's what it was. You know what I mean? So I went and got tested. Then it was positive. I went to the ER. However, I took hydroxychloroquine also. I did. But I cannot confidently say that is what made me get well. There's no, I cannot confidently say that.
Why
Why?
not?
Because because reading a lot of articles and listening to what the doctor is saying, there are a lot of things that still need to be proven. COVID-19 is a very new virus, very, very new virus that we don't know about it. Some doctors they thought at one point they think they've gotten a hang of it. Like, okay, you know what? Oh, the young people cannot get it. Before you know, the next day they say, oh my God, now we're having young people die of it. You know what I mean? They say, okay, people that have no existing high blood pressure, all these things, or if you have those existing conditions, you get. You can have your symptoms will be severe. But guess what? It's proven wrong. So it's a very new virus. So for somebody to make absolute statements that have not yet been scrutinized or that have not yet, like you said, in science, 1 + 1 is 2. There are no two ways of it. For somebody to make absolute statement, I just think, it's problematic, especially with a virus like this that is brand new and a lot of people have died of it. So answering your question, I did not really feel a lot of symptoms because that same day when I came back home, that was the end of my symptoms when I took Tylenol. That was the end of my symptoms. So I cannot really explain. My wife also caught it. Her own symptoms were different. You know what I mean? Her own symptoms were different. She even had pneumonia after that. But guess what? She also took the same regimen that I took: the vitamin C, the hydroxychloroquine, the zinc, and all those things. But why was her own condition different? Are you going to say she's sick? No, she has no other existing condition. So I just think that with a new virus like this, we cannot come out and just say make absolute statements. That's just my thought. Yeah, because everybody's symptoms is different. Some people, they have GI symptoms. Yeah, so everybody have different symptoms and they experience different things. So yeah, so absolute statements, I don't think it's the right thing to do, especially at this time.
At the hospital, you are called Charles Vomomse. In the music world, you are called Vomomse. I love to call you King Charles, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes I call you Igwe Charles. Now let's talk about
I'll
your
take
music.
all that.
There's so much power in your music. What are you singing about, Charles? How many songs have you composed, by the way?
Well, I have more than 100 songs, but I have about 20 to 30 out there right now. About 20 to 30 songs out there right now, with videos and stuff like that. Yeah, so I have a lot of songs.
The one I just played.
And I'm still
the one that
every day.
I just played. Is it the latest one? The movie.
No, the latest one is called Papa. Yeah, Move It was produced in 2016. Yeah.
Boy, that is so powerful. Listen, if I contracted COVID-19, I think that would be my medication. I have to listen to it.
Can I say something to you? That is one of the songs that I used because I was working out. That was one of the songs that I was using. during then.
All
At
right.
that time, yes, that's one of the songs that I was actually using.
After Move It, what next? Let's hear it. And this is Sir King Charles, Vamamsa. And Charles is connecting live from Michigan in the United States.
Everything we'll get to you handed it. The place we are there, you handed it. Everything we'll get to you handed it. I'll give you the glory. You don't change my story from grass to grace. Oh, this is my story. I'll give you the glory. My level don't change from grass to grace. Oh, this is my story. Papa, go now, you want you. Now you want you. Papa, go now, you want you. Now you want you. If you pass your exam, he handed it. Yeah, yeah. If your market it pass, oh, he handed it.
Wow. Charles.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you come from Cameroon, and one would expect maybe a Makossa. You're from the Northwest region. Somebody would expect something like Bagalum or, the Wenjang. This is completely different from this genre. It's not typically Cameroonian. What was going on in your head, boy?
Music is a universal language. Music, even without words, without any lyrics, is still a universal language. And when you're doing music, it should be something that anybody from anywhere can listen to it. And when God plays something in your heart, God doesn't place the same thing in everybody's heart. You know what I mean? When God places something in your heart, just express it the way He placed it in your heart. So it may not sound Cameroon, it may not sound. But however, also that's the kind of genre that is kind of reigning right now. Those things like that. But I always want to put a twist in every little thing, every music that I do, every music that I do.
And you do it so good. Let's get the next bit.
You bring me up, turn my life and you give me the money. I feel like they got jump the way you do me for body. Come on now, me with the dance and the present. With you for my life and up kissing me, I go to fear anybody. Come on me with dance, show him the way that we feel it. Come on me with dance, show him how much I will love it. I get too much swagger. Too much swagger, I get too much swagger. You pick me up, you pick me up, you pick me up, you pick me up. Madaria, I will give you my love, 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 my enemies, my enemies, my enemies.
It's getting hot, my guys.
My enemies. They wanna love, I will give you my life, anything what you want. I always go follow you, I will stay by your lane.
Now, the reason why I cut this song is so you can go look for it, where it is. Now, Charles, where can people find the collection? You see, sometimes when you get an album, you may like one or two songs. When I start playing your music, I'm liking every track in it. Where can people are just having fun here at Chat Night Africa this evening. Where can people get these songs, gospel songs in the first place? I mean, before you answer that question, Charlie, when people think about playing music, gospel music isn't the first thing they're thinking about, because to them, they don't think it's going to do well in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I've had I've had a lot of interviews, and this is always like one of the questions that I always answer all the time. And some people ask, the first thing they always ask is, why gospel? My answer to them is, why not gospel? You know what I mean? Why not gospel? You know, they can find the music everywhere. That's the first thing. And secondly, like you said, they think, I mean, I don't play religious music. I play gospel music. And I play music to edify. I play music to move somebody. I play music to get you out of that sorrowful mode. You know, I play music so that when you listen, you are blessed. I play music. I mean, I just believe that King David in the Bible was doing something that is absolutely different, absolutely not like just the ordinary, to be able to attract God, to attract the presence of God, to be able to attract God. So I mean, when I'm playing music, I mean, I have a lot of, like I told you, I have a lot of songs. Some of them I will never publish them, because when I listen to them, it doesn't give me that you know, it doesn't have that aspect in it. That's why I just like, okay, you know what, I got to do something else. So I mean, music has to be, I don't care what kind of music. I mean, gospel music has to be something when somebody listens to it, they should be moved. When somebody listens to music, they should be moved in any way, shape, or form. If gospel music doesn't move you, then something, I mean, I just believe something is wrong with it.
Well, before we bring back Dr. Former on the stage to take some more pounding from Chat Night Africa, let's see what again is in the now I'm losing that word. Repository, that's the word, repository of the collection, if you like, the album, the arsenal of Vomam Se. Let's go.
Vomam Se.
Best music.
They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa,
I love this one.
Me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. I am the apple of his eye. Every day I go shine.
Africa.
Papa God don't hide me under his wings, because he is my shield. That's why I'm singing.
From Washington DC metropolitan area.
Busy body.
This is Vomam Se.
Papa God bless me.
Connecting live from Michigan.
Busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. I will follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. Follow Jesus. I will follow Jesus.
Chat Night Africa, Vomam Se live from Michigan, United States of America.
They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me. They will be busy body, busy body, busy body. Papa God bless me. Papa God bless me.
Busybody, Papa God bless you. What are you trying to tell people? That people are too busy to notice the blessings that they have? What is it you're trying to tell people?
No, that's not what it is. You know, the Bible says the kingdom of God suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. And that the thief cometh to kill, to steal, and to destroy. But Jesus came that we may have life and have it more abundantly. So the devil is moving around like a rolling lion looking for somebody to devour. That's just what that song is about. Looking for someone to devour, but it's not going to be me. It's not going to be you if you take that to be your story.
For Mumsy, I have to tell you this. If you became a pastor, you'll have the biggest church in the United States.
If that is the will of God, it's coming.
Make sure you make me the treasurer.
Oh,
that's the post I want.
No, I
didn't say financial sector. I said the treasurer. I don't want to come taking notes.
No, you'll be the co-pastor.
I couldn't do this. I couldn't do so well, buddy.
I know.
Listen, hey, look, Charles. Listen, and seriously, if you became a pastor, your sermons will be all music. And that's why I'm saying that you'll have the biggest church.
Well,
young people love this stuff. Right?
We were born to praise. We were born. That's why I was born to praise God. That's why I was born. No other reason. No other reason. I was born to give glory to God. That's it. So if in my church there is praise from morning to the next day, I mean that is good enough. If there's praise and worship from morning
I have your
to the
latest
end of the
video,
day,
and here we go. And you are listening to the Mom Said.
Zimia som liminge. Masutende mia bimye. Imuranga ke bobwan.
Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?
Laisse-moi ça, tu parles de toi. Tu marches pas, tu sors pas, tu ne sais pas que c'est show me your way. I don't know where to go. Papa, I want to follow you. Hey, Papa, where they know the phone. Hey, Papa, I want to follow you. Hey, with your power, I go walk all the way. With your love, I say, let me answer to you. Things they know the work, I say, I go the work, I follow. Papa, you be number one, nobody there for you before. Papa, not by your grace, we are getting my bolo. Now we know you for the life, that's what they do, work at the pool. That's what they do, work at the pool. That's what they do, work at the Papa, show me your way. I don't know where to go. Papa, I want to follow you. Papa, where they go before. Papa, I want to follow you.
All right. Now, before we bring back the doctor, where can people get? You can just tell us it's everywhere. If I go to the grocery store,
you go to iTunes.
Yeah, where do you find these songs for Momse?
The easiest place to check out. Just go to Google. If you click, just put Momse on Google. All my songs will come out. My discography is gonna come up. All my songs will come up. They are on iTunes. They are on every online music store. Every online music store. So if you just search the name Momse on Google, and every online store is gonna come up. Even on my Wikipedia, you can find every link to get all the songs, to get all my songs.
Well, as you can see on the screen, your wife is very active. Your wife is very active. She's posted this information that Vamomse's latest album is on YouTube, and you have all of the link there on the screen. So you can just Google Vamomse. You will see this guy. He has a large repository of beautiful, beautiful songs. Wow. I mean, do you have a last word, Vamamse, before you go?
Well, what I just want to say is that we, especially in a time like this, I'm going to say something that is general, especially at a time like this. People, we need each other. People need to be concerned, and people need to focus on lifting people up, especially at a time like this. That's why I actually do songs like this. These are very strange times, very strange times. So this is the reason that I choose to do songs like this, especially at a time like this. So we shouldn't be too focused on the negative, because when we are too focused on the negative, we will miss the things that God has in stock for us. If we focus on the negative, there's just too much good out here, regardless of what is going on right now. There's just too much good. So we shouldn't focus too much on the negative, because the moment we do that, trust me, we're going to lose track of counting our blessings and naming them one by one. So we should use this opportunity, what is going on, and use to support people, use to lift people up, use to lift people up. I mean, negativity in every area, I mean, the media here and there, it's just too much. So please use this opportunity and bless people with your words, with anything that you can use to bless people. Use that to bless people. And like I said earlier, if you go to Google, you're going to see all my songs. I mean, I have tons of songs there, beautiful songs that will uplift your spirit, songs that will make, you can use them for your workout, you can use them to worship, you can use them for anything. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Vamamse, for connecting live from Michigan. And in just a moment, Dr. Kenneth Farmer, the discussion, the truths, or the conspiracies about COVID-19 and hydroxychloroquine. In just a moment, we will have back on the platform Dr. Kenneth Farmer. This is Chat Night Africa, live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
Hands up in the air, we fly, you don't care. Level, move it. Hands up in the air, we fly, you don't care. Who God has blessed, no man can curse. Move it.
Chat Night Africa. Music, entertainment, information, where the world meets Africa.
Enemies don't tire because I don't hammer. People say I go win.
This is Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. In just a moment, we have Dr. Kenneth Farmer. Hello, Dr. Kenneth Farmer. We needed that break. The temperature was getting dangerously high. And for those who are watching, those who are hypertensive, you can imagine what very high temperatures, or I mean, when the blood pressure is going very high, you can imagine what happens. We will be bringing back Dr. Farmer in just a moment. This is Chat Night Africa, live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And ladies and gentlemen, we bring back Dr. Kenneth Farmer on the platform. Dr. Farmer, people want to hear from you. Please just keep still. You keep going on. I think it's fine now. Hello, Dr. Farmer.
Hello, Divine.
In one of the videos that went viral, here is what Dr. Stella Emanuel said. It's called COVID-19 is called a cure because it eradicates, and this is a direct quote, because it eradicates its symptoms and the diseases. If a treatment eradicates symptoms, why shouldn't you categorically say it treats that disease?
Well, for the case of COVID itself, I just want to say getting hydroxychloroquine in the first place does not eradicate the symptoms of the disease. Neither does it take your viral loads to zero. There is no proof that that statement is true. I'm not trying to come in here to be very harsh on what she said. I just want science to prevail. We all know patients who were all on hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis, zinc, and vitamin C. We have a lot of them who ended up having COVID. And also we have data which exist, which are clinical trials, and there are level 1 evidence, meaning that they are the best evidence we have in medicine, showing to us that using hydroxychloroquine in very sick patients, moderately sick patients, mild patients, asymptomatic patients doesn't change the course of the disease. At the moment, we do not know that.
You are watching Dr. Kenneth Former. And Dr. Former is at Chat Night Africa today to respond to the videos that went viral produced by Dr. Stella Emanuel. The importance of this, I keep saying, we're talking about over 152,000 people that have died in the United States, equally large numbers in Africa, Europe, and Latin America, and the rest of the world, so to speak, China, Asia. And so we cannot afford to leave a certain narrative out there without some level of cross-examination, without some level of scrutiny, especially when somebody comes and says categorically that COVID-19 has a cure. If you are, let me put it this way, again, I'm reading direct quote, if you are not on prophylaxis, wear a mask. If you are not on prophylaxis, the question is, would you advise people to take hydroxychloroquine as prophylaxis? What is prophylaxis? Everybody didn't go to medical school. Explain that.
So prophylaxis is when you take a medication in order to prevent yourself from getting the infection. So we do take prophylaxis for malaria, and there are some drugs out there that are available. Hydroxychloroquine is no longer one of them that we take for prophylaxis. There is atovaquone we take for prophylaxis. If you're traveling back to Africa, you're in the US, you would get a medication which you have to take in order to prevent you from getting malaria. And even if you get malaria, you don't get the severe type. So that is prophylaxis. I wanted to use an example to do it. We do give so-called fancy that used to be given. A lot of people know that name, those who are from Africa, in order for pregnant women as prophylaxis for malaria. So that is what prophylaxis is, taking a medication to prevent yourself from getting the disease. Now, using hydroxychloroquine for prophylaxis, I want to insist on this, Divine. We all wanted this to work. Hydroxychloroquine is cheap. We were all hopeful. As I said, in New York, during the peak of this pandemic, I saw thousands of patients. We gave them hydroxychloroquine for treatment. We were all involved in hydroxychloroquine protocol for prophylaxis. A lot of the doctors who took it, just showing how wrong Stella's statement is, that if you take it, you are going to be cured, you will never have it. A lot of the doctors who took hydroxychloroquine and nurses, respiratory therapists, still got sick, and there was no difference with their symptoms compared to those who did not take hydroxychloroquine.
Let me question you again. Let me question you again. You were in New York. You are still in New York. You worked there when COVID-19, when New York was the epicenter of COVID-19. I want to ask you the question again because some people may just be joining the broadcast now. How many patients did you guys see in New York, in your hospital?
In my hospital, we saw thousands of patients. I'm counting in the thousand. I myself, I saw thousands of patients throughout the pandemic. We had patients everywhere, intubated, those who were mildly sick, those who were severely sick, those who were concerned. We saw all categories of patients. New York had over 100,000 patients that were sick. We saw a lot of patients, more than Stella can ever see. But this is not a comparison statement. I'm just simply trying as much as possible. It's not letting down a sister, as people may want to make it look like. It's making sure that we have information out there which is accurate. We do not mislead our people, because being a doctor, you are a form of authority. At times, your words are taken for the truth. And we should not mix politics, because these statements came in the back scene of the Tea Party in videoing it. I am not an advocate on either the left or the right in the US. There are some policies I love in the right. There are other policies I love in the left. I want the economy to open. That will surprise you, Divine, but I want everyone to wear a mask. Because
here is what somebody said. Yeah, here's, before you continue, sir, if now the phone number to this broadcast, if you are outside of the United States, you can dial 001. That's, again, that would be a WhatsApp call, 001-240-603-7367. Let me repeat that. If you are outside of the United States, you can dial 001-240-603-7367. Now, if we are doing a replay of this broadcast later on, don't call the number because you won't reach me. If you are in the United States, simply dial 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. This is what Peaceful Favor, the wife of Charles Vomomse, says. She contracted COVID-19. Here's what she says. I put that on the screen for everybody to see. I took hydroxychloroquine when I had COVID-19 and still got very sick and got admitted to hospital. I developed cardiac arrhythm, or what? I'm not a doctor.
Cardiac arrhythmia, so that's arrhythmia.
Okay, very good. So this is what she says. Chat Night Africa live from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Here is what Dr. Stella said in one of the videos. NIH, a study by NIH in 2005, that's the National Institute of Health, in 2005, shows that hydroxychloroquine works. It treated hiccups, a symptom of, now we have somebody, the first caller. This is Chat Night Africa. Hello.
Yeah, hello, Uncle Diva. This is Dr. Nick Santos.
How are you, sir?
Doing great.
I'm glad you are following the broadcast.
I'm following it live because I'm so concerned and worried about what is going on, especially when our frontline practitioners are trying to educate us on what is going on. Because not all of us are clinicians in the term of being physicians. We are there to accommodate the disaster, like trying to counsel the people, trying to psycho-educate them on what is ongoing. When I talk to most physicians, especially when it comes to what is ongoing now, where physicians are being split between those who are for hydrochloroquine and those who are against, I see it like a lot of disorder in the medical field. For now, we don't have a cure. Not having a cure does not mean that we cannot give people something to try to, or we cannot continue with trials. What I've studied or what I've known in the country where I exist currently, in the United States, look at capitalism has overcome a lot of things whereby people go to the emergency, they treat you for the kind of insurance that you have and not for the kind of disease that you got.
Not cutting you, Dr. Nick Santo. Since we're trying to leave the line open to lots of other people who may want to call, did you have some particular question
Yeah, my particular question is that, let me limit my time, yeah.
Yes,
my
sir.
particular question is that, well, you see, when people go to the emergency, they have a problem. They have been complaining to me that when they go there, they look at the kind of insurance they have, especially nurses, and they allow some patients to die. So I want our doctor there to say that, do they allow patients to die out of COVID-19 because they don't want to give them hydroxychloroquine because it doesn't work or it works? Because allowing people to die, for me, is contrary to my practice as a clinical psychologist, whereby our code of ethics is do no harm and do good all the time, beneficence and non-maleficence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, you get the essence of his question. If somebody came very sick and you have and you have hydroxychloroquine, would you say, well, this thing doesn't work, it has harmful effects, and not give that dying patient? What would you do?
So I'm going to repeat what I said. And first and foremost, we also do a lot of medical ethics. We do practice known maleficence and beneficence. And that's what we do. That's what holds the code of ethics in medicine. There are several ethic principles. Nobody in the US allows anyone to die. If they are doing that, then they can be legally sued for that. Once you come into the hospital and you are sick, what happens is you are screened. Depending on, there are several what we call supportive care measures. Someone comes in, he's hypoxic, meaning that his oxygen level is low. With COVID-19, they will put you on oxygen. There are several levels of oxygen you can get, from putting you on a nasal cannula, which is a simple thing you put on the nostrils, right up to putting you, intubating you if it's necessary. There are several medications that have been proven right now that do work for COVID. Remdesivir reduces the length of stay from 15 days to 11 days. People should know that. We use it in all US hospitals. The Trump administration has made sure that most of the US hospitals have that. Dexamethasone reduces mortality from 50% to 25%. We use that for oxygenated patients. We do have data coming out from the UK that interferon beta works. That is being used for all patients in the US. We do have other clinical trials going on. We use anticoagulants because we now know that severe patients with severe COVID-19 do have what you call a microangiopathy. So we give them anticoagulants, and there are clinical trials going on that. We also use other medications which are called interleukin-6 inhibitors. I could spend a whole time trying to explain it, but simply your body is trying to kill itself because there's a virus in it. So we use those medications. There's a drug called tocilizumab. There are others called baricitinib. We use them. Recent trials just came out showing that tocilizumab does not work, and that is why we're going to stop using it.
So I'm going to question you right there.
Yes.
Why people quickly buy into all these viral videos is because big pharma meaning, if you're not in the United States, big pharma simply means the pharmaceutical, multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industries. The claim or the belief is that big pharma doesn't want people to use hydroxychloroquine. And in Dr. Stella's statement, each time there are studies that come out that support the efficacy of hydroxychloroquine, big pharma comes in, sponsors some of you guys to come and slam it. Because they want to make money from the new medication.
So divide. Yes, I want to stop this. This is very
foundational to the circulation, or why people believe what those viral videos claim to be saying.
I want to tell you why people believe in viral videos, because we all believe in hope. Right now, there's a disease destroying the world and there is no cure. It's easy to hope for a cure and attach yourself to that belief mindset, hoping that once you get it, you're going to get a cure. You're going to be better. You're going to get healed from the disease. That is why, just because of hope, we as physicians also had that hope. We wanted to have a cure as quickly as possible. We wanted to make sure that we're having this disease is under control. But what I can tell you right now is that dexamethasone is a cheap drug. It's cheaper than hydroxychloroquine. clinical trials that were done in England just came out showing that dexamethasone works for COVID. It's what you call, it's no longer a branded drug. It's more a generic drug. So anyone can produce dexamethasone. This is to show you that there is really no big conspiracy theory. And most of the clinical trials going on right now are either sponsored by the NIH, which is not big pharma. They are sponsored by the European Union. They are sponsored by the British healthcare system. And all the studies from hydroxychloroquine we get, which we have been quoting, did not come from the US. So nobody was sitting there trying to get a viral campaign against Trump in order for him not to be re-elected. These were studied. The recent study came from Brazil where the president supports hydroxychloroquine. This was done in the outpatient, and the study shows, it's a clinical trial, that it did not work. There were some early studies, which were all retrospective studies. That's a very bad study usually, that showed that hydroxychloroquine could have a benefit. But truly, we have clinical trials now showing that it doesn't work. We are waiting for more trials. But going out there with this data that you have and saying that you have a cure is totally wrong. It's not acceptable in the scientific world
now,
to do that.
Somebody is asking, I've read this, I've repeated this number several times. Can somebody pin it on the screen? If my director is saying, please pin the number on the screen. It's 240-603 7367. Let me repeat, 240-603-7367. If you're overseas outside of the United States, you can do 001 first before you go on 240-603-7367. I hope that the number has been communicated to everybody. I see some people asking for somewhere in one of the videos. Again, let me come back to the question. Because there's so much Dr. Stella Emanuel said we could be here all night talking about those videos, but I'm highlighting some of these statements, important key statements she made. Why should big pharmaceutical industries, big pharma, what is commonly referred to in the United States as big pharma, why should the big pharmaceutical industry, multi-billion-dollar industries, why should they not do everything to fight a medication that's going to stop them from making money from the new drugs? It makes economic sense.
Because they too will die before the drug comes out. Trust me. Because everyone is afraid. Everyone is scared. Everyone needs treatment. Come on. They too, we have a lot of big people who have died, who were even the English prime minister was sick and he was in the hospital. So I just want to tell you, this is a pandemic. We have it once every century. The last one was in 1918. We have a pandemic at hand. We need every workforce, every research at hand. We need everyone who has any research capabilities to come in and help us. But I want to tell you, I started this by telling you back in late February, March, we did use hydroxychloroquine right up to May. We used hydroxychloroquine in New York City to treat COVID. We gave it with zinc, we gave it with doxycycline, we gave it with azithromycin, we gave it with vitamin C, we gave it with vitamin D. When the research started coming out, overwhelming trials started coming out showing that this does not work, we had to change our practice because we're scientists. There was the recovery trial that was done in England that showed that hydroxychloroquine does not make a difference. There was the Orchid trial that was done that shows that 5 days of hydroxychloroquine does not make a difference. There was the Solidarity trial that was being carried out by WHO in more than 200 countries that showed that hydroxychloroquine does not make a difference. There was the Chang's trial that got in China that showed that hydroxychloroquine does not make a difference. There is Keeper trial. There is the Coalition trial. There is the Bowell trial. There are the Magic trial. There are so many of them that show that hydroxychloroquine did not make a difference. We are still waiting for outpatient data also. We have not given up, but making a bold statement that you have a treatment with all of these trials showing that it doesn't work, it is actually very unprofessional and can be lethal in itself.
How can you
totally lethal?
How can you claim that this would be lethal when, you practiced in Cameroon, in Africa, and pretty much it can be safely said that hydroxychloroquine was administered to malaria patients in Africa. Did any of them die of heart complications? Why is, because that's one of the questions that Stella raised. Why is it a problem? Why all this talk about cardiac problems when this is the medication that was used in Africa to treat malaria?
Oh, thank you for that question. I want to tell you, hydroxychloroquine was withdrawn from Africa back in 2005. In 1995. And this is to help those who don't understand this debate. Why was hydroxychloroquine withdrawn? Because it was no longer effective for Plasmodium falciparum. So we have not been using chloroquine sulfate. That's actually the derivative we used to use in Africa. It used to cause a lot of itching. Another thing, back in Africa, practicing medicine, nobody did an EKG. And when you have a deadly disease like malaria, which is killing people, then we had chloroquine, which could help cure malaria. But the side effects of hydroxychloroquine occur more in the elderly population. Our mean age in Africa is about 17 years in my country, Cameroon. That of the US is about 65 years. Majority of the people are very old. They have cardiac risk factors. Getting hydroxychloroquine, adding it to azithromycin, you need to be careful because it can cause QTc prolongation and can cause sudden cardiac death. That is actually what we were scared of. We gave it in New York and we monitored the QTc of these patients. But what I want to tell you is that hydroxychloroquine has not been used in Africa for 25 years to treat malaria. It's being used to treat systemic lupus erythematosus and rheumatoid arthritis in some few patients, but not for malaria in most African countries, especially West Africa. So those who are claiming
go ahead,
that it's being used right now for treatment of malaria, they are wrong. If you ask doctors who are in Cameroon today, they will tell you they were also looking for chloroquine sulfate during this time. And WHO had to make it available at the time when it was still part of their protocol.
Here is a question from Pascal Okanimba Agua. I don't know where he's writing from. He says, why was the French professor Didier Raoult not criticized when he declared hydroxychloroquine cures COVID-19 in the same manner that Dr. Stella did? So why is, some people they're denouncing this woman because she's African. Why did other people do it and they didn't denounce them?
I'm not denouncing Stella alone. I'm denouncing everybody that was with her, all the whites that were with her. She was just taken as a pawn and used. The thing is, Didier Raoult's statement came in March. That was early on. And then we did not have data to say it works or it doesn't work. When Raoult came out with that data, that is what told us in New York to start giving hydroxychloroquine to everybody. We gave hydroxychloroquine and clinical trials came out justifying that hydroxychloroquine does not work. So we had to stop using it because we have empiric data, clinical research showing that hydroxychloroquine does not work in patients who are sick. So Raoult's data was early on in the pandemic. That is what people are really confused about. You cannot criticize someone when you don't have data. As a scientist, when Raoult made the statement, I didn't have any data to say he was right or wrong. But because of the mechanism of action of this hydroxychloroquine, because it's a zinc ionophore, it causes zinc to get into the cells, and we thought that by that way we're going to be able to kill the virus. But in real life, it has not proven to work.
I had a question that I put through to you before the phone call came in from Dr. Santo. Again, if you want to challenge the guy, my guest, you're welcome to do so. Fear not. We don't fear challenging people at Chat Night Africa. The number again is 240-603-7367. 240-603-7367. Thank you, Tilda Kumichi, for pinning the number on the screen. I just took it off a moment ago because I thought I had communicated it several times. Do you confirm that there was an NIH study in 2005 that showed that a hydroxychloroquine works? Are you aware of that study?
The thing is, saying there was an NIH study that shows that hydroxychloroquine works. Works for what? That's the question. Does it work for COVID-19? COVID-19 was not available, was not present then.
The statement that Stella did or made was that it treated hiccups, which is a symptom of COVID-19. How then can you say that it doesn't treat COVID-19? Because that's the question she raised.
That's what you call a double fallacy, meaning that the logic itself doesn't make sense. There was no COVID-19 back in 2005, and deducing that COVID-19 is a symptom of or hiccup is a symptom of COVID-19, therefore hydroxychloroquine treats COVID because it treated hiccup. That is totally unacceptable. That is making two wrong statements and believing that you're right. So there was no COVID-19 in 2005. And hiccup is a symptom of so many diseases. Anything that irritates the diaphragm causes you to have hiccup. It can be a sign of you just having bloated stomach. It could be a sign of you having pneumonia in your lower lobes of your chest. It could be a sign of you having gastrointestinal problems. It could be a sign of so many things. So saying that because hydroxychloroquine cured hiccup, which I don't believe it does cure hiccup, does not mean hydroxychloroquine is going to cure COVID-19. Those are two different statements. The logic itself is totally wrong. And this is what I'm talking about. Misleading people with terrible logic, with false statements, which are totally wrong. Mixing them with some level of science in it and trying to confuse people who do not understand what we're really talking about.
Again, let me say that the platform is wide open for Stella to come. Stella Emanuel, if she wants to. If she's not watching this broadcast, some people are likely going to tell her this broadcast took place. First of all, disclaimer, I have to say this. I've known Stella since the mid-70s in Bali, so she's a friend. Yes, she's a friend. She's someone I've known since the mid-70s. She knows me. I know her. She has my number. I have hers. She wants to contact us to come on Chat Night Africa. She'll be free to do so. I will open the platform and also challenge her with very, 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 very incisive questions, the same way I'm doing Dr. Former. This is one of the statements she made. There is a cure, and this is very categorical. There's a cure for COVID-19. It's called hydroxychloroquine. It's called zinc. It's called Zitromax. Now, what is the problem here? Is it that when you don't have that cocktail, it doesn't work, or even with this cocktail, it would work? I'd like you to address that.
So I know a lot of people would tell me the clinical trials have been only on hydroxychloroquine. Why not combine the cocktail? The clinical trials were on hydroxychloroquine, majority of them, but giving in New York where I worked, we gave all the cocktail. We did give hydroxychloroquine, we gave zinc, and we also gave azithromycin. And it did not work. It did not show any difference. And recently, a clinical trial just came out in Brazil, the Coalition COVID-19 trial that was published in New England Journal of Medicine on the 23rd, showing that hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin in the outpatient did not work. So that in itself, it's a very wrong claim. So this can be very detrimental for our brothers who are out there who want us to promote our sister. But once you're saying things which are wrong, then we need to be able to be out front to declare that those statements are wrong. And it's not a cure, it's not a panacea, it's not a magical drug. If it was a magical drug, it has been studied so far since the pandemic started. We would have been seeing lights in the air showing that it's going to work and it's going to treat COVID. The way she says it is totally wrong.
Dr. Peter Ivo disagrees with you. He says you are wrong on your information on the use of hydroxychloroquine and its derivatives in Africa for malaria. What's your reaction to Dr. Dieter?
As I said, hydroxychloroquine is no longer used in West Africa. That was what I said, and I'm right about that. It's no longer used in West Africa to treat malaria because we have malaria Plasmodium falciparum, which is resistant to chloroquine sulfate. Hydroxychloroquine is used in order to treat some rheumatological diseases, but not for malaria in West Africa. It's no longer used by the WHO. This can be checked in the WHO website. You do have hydroxychloroquine, which is being used in some places back in South America, and it's also used in some places in Asia and some part of East Africa, but not in West Africa, because we do have Plasmodium falciparum, which is resistant to hydroxychloroquine, and it was withdrawn. And if you talk to those back in Cameroon, as I said, and I've been talking to them, they were also looking for chloroquine sulfate. which is the generic drug which we use. There are other derivatives of chloroquine, which are derivative of quinine. They're not, chloroquine itself is a derivative of quinine. There are other derivatives of quinine, which are still being used, but hydroxychloroquine and the chloroquine sulfate is not used for malaria anymore in West Africa, including my country, Cameroon. That's the statement I made.
Yeah, let me repeat again that don't only text your question. My phone lines are open. If you have something that you don't agree with Dr. Former, he came on the show today knowing and expecting people to challenge him. So don't go behind and say this is right or this is wrong. He is live on the show now, and I've put out the phone number. I expect you to call and ask him your question. I am not going to stop you from asking anybody from asking the question. The idea, again, science is specific. Science is not literary appreciation. It's either true or it's not true. Question I want to ask you, in case some people just joined the broadcast now, what are the authoritative sources? I'd like you to clearly put that out. What are the authoritative sources that say that hydroxychloroquine does not or cannot treat COVID-19? What are those sources?
Well, it's, as I told you, Divine, I'm not going to claim things which I do not know. I will tell you hydroxychloroquine does not work in hospitalized patients. In the recovery trial, that was actually a preprint and is going to be published in New England Journal. It's available. There is an Orchi trial which was released and it says hydroxychloroquine does not work. There is also the Solidarity trial that was published and says hydroxychloroquine does not. It was stopped early. There is Tang and Al that was published in the BMG journal and says that hydroxychloroquine does not work. The New England Journal of Medicine just published the Coalition COVID-19 trial that shows that hydroxychloroquine does not work in the outpatient. There is the Skipper trial that shows that hydroxychloroquine does not work. If you go to New England Journal of Medicine, which is like the top journal of medicine for general medicine, there are several clinical trials there looking at hydroxychloroquine and if it works or not. There are also studies for prophylaxis. There was one study which I personally was involved in because I did try to take hydroxychloroquine to prevent myself not from getting sick when we heard about it. But I did not know if I took the placebo or not. But the trials came out, which was run by the University of Minnesota. And the results are showing that hydroxychloroquine did not actually work in prophylaxis. So that is where I'm coming from. But as I said, there are still trials running, which are combining hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin. There are several of them still running. We are waiting for the results, but to come out and say that hydroxychloroquine is the treatment for COVID when used early, as you can see, one of those who were here said she took hydroxychloroquine and she felt sick. And I have many of my colleagues who were on hydroxychloroquine, got sick and got hospitalized. They were on zinc and they were also on azithromycin. They all got sick and hospitalized, still being on that. So that shows that her statement in itself is totally not factual.
I read a paper, when Professor Nche Abegli Zama writes, I listen. He's one of the leading cardiac surgeons, heart surgeons in the United States, Harvard-trained professor at Harvard, and he completely disagreed with Stella. I have that on my phone. I was trying to go through it to see. I have so much that people have sent to me. He actually said categorically it doesn't work, that it does not work. That's Professor Abegli Nche Abegli Zama. I took him here at Chat Night Africa and everybody was applauding. I just wanted to mention that. And some people are also going to say, and I know I'm repeating this, I'm doing this on purpose. Some people are going to say, well, that was Professor Zama of Harvard. How about the professor at Yale who agrees with Stella? So who is believable here? What's the data? You saw what the professor at Yale is one of the topmost universities in the United States. What is the data that professor is using to be categorical about the virtues of hydroxychloroquine? You saw that write-up.
He's actually a physician and an epidemiologist who is well respected. And I think his brief that he gave in the journals came early during the pandemic. That's the first thing. And he also had a response recently. And early during the pandemic, he gathered retrospective studies and also gathered cohort studies, which were showing a positive trend that hydroxychloroquine works. And those were the data we relied on in order to be able to give hydroxychloroquine during the peak of this pandemic. And he made a very compelling argument about the use of hydroxychloroquine in order to prevent people from getting sick. But what actually causes a loophole in this argument right now is that we have had clinical trials that have just come out, especially for those who are in the prophylactic group and those who are also in the mild to moderate group who are outpatient, showing that it does not work. That is what it leaves it for a debate. And I've said for hospitalized patients, it's done and dusted. For moderate patients, it's done and dusted. For those who are in the outpatient, there is data on both sides, and you need to be able, as a scientist, to err on caution, look at the data. There's stronger evidence available that it does not work right now because we have clinical trials, which is a level 1 evidence showing that it doesn't work. And they are all randomized, they are blinded. I could explain to you what a clinical trial is if they want to know. But what I want to say right now is that coming out forcefully and telling the people there is a cure and people don't want to give it, and I personally feel each doctor should make a decision what they're going to give their patient. I feel, but coming out forcefully and telling the public, you're trying to make an opinion statement become part of science, which is not backed by true science. It's an opinion statement, which is not backed by science. Most of science is against it, and you want people to take it as a gospel truth.
I am not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not even a medical professional. But when it's mentioned that the New England Journal of Medicine has made a statement about a certain treatment, drug therapy, I listen to it. And so if anybody disagrees with the New England Journal of Medicine, you ought to have your facts really right. And you should explain to us how. Again, I'm not taking sides. I'm just challenging either side.
And it's important to know that this New England Journal of Medicine have also gotten things wrong. That's why it is flaming this polemic too. Right. Lancet published a trial which later on was shown that there were some issues in that trial. And they are so honest to come back and tell us what really went wrong, because these trials are peer-reviewed, meaning that fellow doctors look at them. And so right now, the consensus we have, which is available, is that hydroxychloroquine does not work for patients who are hospitalized, for patients who are mildly sick, for patients who are mildly sick and in the outpatient. There is data that just came out, 2 clinical trials showing that it doesn't work. Now, I want to say something which is very important. Yes, if you do see patients in the outpatient, it's very different from when you see patients who are sick and hospitalized. Once you have COVID-19, if 100 people do have COVID-19, 90% of them, with the way we're testing right now in Texas, 90% of them will be either asymptomatic or mildly sick. These are the kind of patients who would actually go to the outpatient and see people like Stella who would prescribe medications to them. It has been proven that most of these patients, no matter what you give to them, they are still going to get better. So in order to show that this drug really works, you need randomized clinical trials. You cannot tell us about your observation because you did give it to 300 patients, then it means that you treated them. Like the common cold, it gets better on its own for 90% of patients, and we do not understand why the other 10% of patients get very sick. We are still trying to understand it, but it's still under a lot of research. And we know certain comorbidities are risk factors, such as diabetes, which is having one of the highest risk factors. It multiplies by 15 times. Hypertension, coronary artery disease. And we also know things like COPD also cause patients to get the worst disease. Men are more at risk. Elderly patients are more at risk for getting severe disease. But it's important to know we don't know why it is 5%. But there are 2 phases to the disease. There is the viral phase and there is the cytokine storm. if you ever took care of a COVID patient, there is a cytokine storm, which I will not want to go detail into that, but I will answer questions. There are a lot of things we did in New York that I could come over here and tell you that it works. I am still very hopeful, and I'm waiting for a certain medication we used, such as baricitinib. A lot of people didn't use it. We saw good outcomes, but I cannot come over to your program and tell you, oh, baricitinib treats COVID-19. We need to have data coming out. We are humans. We make errors. We have our biases. We take care of patients better when we give them things that we feel work. We give them more care. So we have this tendency to believe that it works. And
I was going to ask you this question. When can it be said in the scientific world that a treatment is effectively there for a certain disease, when you would have tried it on 300 people or 3,000 or 30,000 people?
Okay. And now it all depends. It depends on what kind of treatment. If you do have something like the rabies kills everybody who gets the rabies dies. And if you're having someone who says he has a drug for rabies, even if you're curing 10, 20 people, the rest of the world is going to listen to you because the rabies kills everyone. The outcome is clear. It's death for 100% of patients who have rabies. That makes it completely different. If you have a disease like COVID-19 or like the flu, which kills only about 2% of those who get it, 5% of those who get it get to the ICU, and 10% of those who get it get sick. In order to declare that you're treating people, you actually need a randomized clinical trial. Without a randomized clinical trial, we could look at retrospective studies. We could look at a cohort study. Those are big terms I'm using.
What do you mean by randomized clinical trial?
Okay. A randomized clinical trial, Divine, means that I decide to take people who are sick of the disease and a disease that has no cure. I decide to use a method of balloting and put one of them, give one of them are people I'm going to give them a placebo. A placebo is something that looks like the drug, feels like the drug, smells like the drug, but it's not the drug. And I'm going to give the other set of people the real drug, which is hydroxychloroquine. I am going to make sure that the doctor does not know which patient I'm giving the right drug to and which patient I'm giving the wrong drug to. That is the first blinding. The second blinding is I'm going to make sure the patient himself does not know which drug he's taking, if he's taking the real drug or the right drug. I'm going to follow these patients over a period of time, which I'm going to define, usually 30 days for an acute disease. Then there is a statistician sitting somewhere in his office with a computer. He's the one who knows who is taking the right drug and who is not taking the right drug. And then he's going to unblind the study. Once he unblinds the study, he's going to get into seeing if this drug truly works. The reason we do this is because we know there is something called the placebo effect. The placebo effect is that once you tell someone that you're treating them for something, they usually get well because your brain controls your body. The brain is good enough to actually boost the immune system to fight viruses and fight diseases. When you believe in something, usually it happens. That is why we're trying to cancel the effect of belief, which occurs. We're also trying to cancel the effect of a doctor. We have noticed that when doctors give the medication to their patients, they take care of them differently. They have special care. They call them. They make sure that they are doing well. So we're taking away that effect from the doctor and from the patient. That is what we call a double-blinded, randomized clinical trial. It's usually a phase 3 clinical trial. We do it for thousands of patients.
Let's call that fake science, double-blinded fake science. Why is she wrong?
It's wrong because it's amazing. At times I'm coming from a perspective, I'm a clinician. I also worked in the lab, which I'm a pathologist. And I'm also a public health scientist. I'm an epidemiologist. So I do understand that not all physicians even understand how drugs are tried. So it's something I think we need to revise the curriculum and get to teach even physicians what drugs are. But I know a lot of physicians do this in their medical training. But I think with what Stella said, a lot of physicians need to understand that the drugs they are using have gone through certain trials. Some of them have been proven to work. If, as I told you, it all depends on what kind of disease. If a disease has a 100% mortality rate, then just giving the drug itself and it cures tells you that this drug cures. But if it's a disease that does not have a 100% rate, then you need to be able to do a clinical trial.
Kennedy Ejacha, well, again, I do understand lots of you are joining this broadcast in midway, but here's the question he asked. Is there any single research from a credible source that gives credence to the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine? Yes or no?
I think there were early in the pandemic, there were some studies that were published, not in very big journals, but they were published in the infectious disease journal in the US, but they showed that hydroxychloroquine could have a benefit, So, but what I'm telling you right now is that from credible journals, what we have seen so far, we're all waiting for these results, is that it does not work. There is still this question, as I tell you, people would ask, are there trials combining hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin in specific populations? Like the Yale professor was he's an intelligent guy, better than you could think about. He said you should give hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and azithromycin in patients who are at risk, who are elderly, who are above 60 years, and then you are going to be able to prevent them. That trial does not exist. But with the available data we have, even for those who are young, we have discovered that it doesn't work.
Let me ask you the question about data, because this is where it's a little bit murky. Which data is credible and which data is not credible?
So in science, there are different levels of evidence. So in science, I could see a patient in my office and I see that the patient has COVID and I give the patient hydroxychloroquine and it works for that particular patient. That is called a case report. I could do it for a series of patients, 10 patients, 20 patients. That's what Dr. Raoul did. That is called a case series. I could decide and do it for 1,000 patients like we did in New York and do a retrospective analysis. So I look at it back in time and see if it works or not. But they are all biases that are existing in that kind of study. I could do a cohort study where I follow them in the time going forward. Then the most credible data we have in medicines are randomized, double-blinded clinical trials. There are some of them which we do crossover. Then there is another higher level, which is a meta-analysis, which takes all these randomized clinical trials and analyze them together in order to find a question, especially when there is controversy in the topic. So that is what we call credible data.
I'm going to give about maybe 5 minutes, hoping that, again, I open the lines for you to challenge Dr. Foma. If he did not, it's no longer the fault of Chat Night Africa. Let me ask you this. If Stella offered to come and have a face-up with you, would you agree?
Yeah, I will. I will not agree. I would agree to come in, not to challenge Stella. I just want to make sure that the information she's passing across is well-grounded. Okay, that's why I'm going to come in. And I'm going to come in because I feel I understand this topic well because of my background. I do have a background in basic science, which I did a lot of clinical pathology, which is working in the lab. I have a little background in epidemiology, and I'm an internist. I'm presently specializing in hematology and oncology. But as I said, I think there are a lot of statements that she made which were totally wrong. And that is why I'm here to say that I don't think it works.
Here is a question from Abu Dhabi. What can you, doctor, tell us about the Madagascar's COVID organics?
Wow. I'm a big fan of African traditional medicine, but I also want African traditional medicine to be held with the same standards as European medicine. So we cannot just get up in the morning and say something works. What the Madagascans were proposing is Artemisia, which has been used for 2,000 years by the Chinese. Artemisia is something we know about. And I am happy the WHO finally agreed to run this as a clinical trial or to include it in its solidarity trial. So far, the data is showing that it's not working. So I really wanted it to work, but I'm sorry that right now we're waiting for the data. We need to carry out clinical trials. We cannot use Africans as guinea pigs also. If we don't want Europeans to use us as guinea pigs, we can't allow our fellow Africans to use us as guinea pigs.
Well, here is what Rosemary Sabatanga says. Ask, have you tried it with prayers? Look, before you answer that question,
I would say something. I think we all pray, and I believe prayers works. And that is why we need what you call a placebo effect. Prayer is one of those placebo effects. And I want to say prayer works for certain people. That's why you need a double-blinded trial. Because in order to say it's the drug, not prayers, you need to be able to randomize the people. So I don't want to discredit prayers in any way, but we all prayed in the peak of the pandemic. I will tell you something. We had more than 20 patients dying every day in New York in my hospital. Young people, maybe I've not told you about my experience. Young people, we had more than 50 people at each given time in our ER were intubated. We had more than 100 people intubated in our hospital at each given time in the peak of the pandemic. We're all scared of our lives. We're scared we're going to die. And we prayed because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know if you're the one who's going to get it, and if you get it, you're going to survive. But clinical trials do take care of prayers too. They randomize patients, and prayers is taken out of the equation. Because everyone prays, so prayer is taken out of the equation, and we really see the true effect of the drug.
Well, let me also say that this evening, there is a pastor in Washington, D.C., who kept saying, yield not to fear of COVID-19, and now he's battling for his life in hospital. I'm sure he said, I keep saying that God and science are not mutually exclusive. I don't know why, what's going on with this fanaticism about, you will not pray away COVID-19. I'm sorry, because listen, God gave you the intelligence to be a doctor. So being a doctor is not being some witch or some witchcraft thing you are practicing that. So listen, I'm saying this because I've talked to pastors who are ignoring these things, and they pack people in their churches, no social distancing, and they claim that if you screamed and jumped through the roof the name of Jesus, you're going to be treated. I'm sorry, that Bible says, thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Science is not mutually, my friends, pastors may not like me for this. I'm not looking for somebody to like me. It is irresponsible for a pastor to have people packed in the church, no mask, because somehow you've told the people that they can pray away COVID-19. We have so many pastors who died, so many members of the choir who died in the United States because of this kind of teaching.
Yeah, and I want to say that I'm here to tell you that the US is where it is today because of people not respecting the social distancing, people not respecting, especially masks. There is evidence out there showing that wearing masks actually does help. Every single country which has a tradition of wearing masks, the pandemic has been mild. Hong Kong, even in China where it started, it went away. In Japan, where we had the ship at their shore with all the COVID patients, they did not have a full-blown pandemic because they were wearing masks. In Vietnam, in so many countries where there is culture of mask wearing, they have not had a full-blown pandemic. I urge all the Americans to put on their masks. As I told you, I'm not a lefty.
Thousands of people are watching sharing the broadcast.
I am not a lefty or righty in this whole thing. I'm just a scientist who wants things to open up. I've been going to work compared to others. I want people to go to work. I strongly believe that we should open up the economy. I may be wrong about this, but we should mandate mask wearing.
Do you understand why people get suspicious about Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical?
Yes, I do understand that.
Why do you think people are suspicious about them?
There have been a lot of, I'll call it in French, faux pas that they have done in many years. They have tried, there are things which are factual. They did try infecting people with syphilis back in the US, so people know those stories. They have tried to use clinical trials in countries which are not well developed, where they can easily go away with it. They have done a lot of things which were not mandated by regulation. So there is that suspicion that exists. Some of it is true. Some of it is based on conspiracy theories too. But there is some truth in everything that someone says. That is why I wanted to filter out what the truth is behind the hydroxychloroquine treatment. A lot of people are posting videos which are old. At the peak of this pandemic, a lot of people are posting Raoul's video,
Did the French government endorse the nationwide use of COVID of hydroxychloroquine? Because one of the videos I watched out.
Yes, they did in March, and they withdrew it back in May.
So if you're watching a video, it's an old video.
They endorsed it in March after Raoul's research, and that is when America also endorsed it. And they withdrew the emergency endorsement back in May when they started having data that is not working. In science, we change. We are not fanatics. Science is not a fanatic thing. Even after saying this, if a huge trial comes out telling me that hydroxychloroquine works, then I have to acknowledge I was wrong. That is how it works. But if you have this strong level of data showing that it works, you cannot go around showing that it doesn't work. You cannot go around doing the wrong things. Then you'll be harming people.
This is Chat Night Africa. I gave 10 minutes and nobody's calling. I see all kinds of debates going on, some against, some for. I expected this. Again, let me say this. If
you have the questions in the debate, I would like to respond to some of them.
Yes, please. In the green room, you can respond to some of the questions, please. People are debating, fighting each other. I'd like to say before we end this show, I'd like to say that the doors of Chat Night Africa are open. First of all, you asked to come on. I didn't stop you. So if friends of Stella are watching and they want to come, and they can tell her that I'm inviting her, and I'm going to bombard her the same way I'm bombarding Dr. Kenneth Former with questions. That's my job. I'm not taking any sides here. I'm going to ask you razor sharp questions the same way. I'll go aggressively again after you. Thank you so much, Doctor. It takes courage to come and Chat Night Africa and take some of these missile type questions. We need to do that because it's important that people get. You cannot have science is not ambivalent. Okay, it is not.
Yeah. I came in because I found this very misleading to the people, and I feel the people need more. And if a few good people stay silent during a time like this, we are not here to...
Just 1 second, hold there, please. Ephraim GK, hello. This is Chat Night Africa. 1 minute, ask your question because we'll soon wrap up. Yes, sir.
Hey, Divine, thank you for great work you're doing. I'm not calling to challenge Dr. Former. I'm just calling to say you're doing a fantastic job. I work as a nurse here in New Orleans and seen a lot of patients during the height of the pandemic. You know, New Orleans was the epicenter of the pandemic back in March. And all what he's saying, I can actually concur. We lost a lot of people. Most of them were on these drugs. But I just want to say he's doing a fantastic job. And thank you for the show. Have a good night.
That's for you, Ephraim. That's for you. Doc, 1 minute for a concluding statement.
Well, my concluding statement is going to be people need to understand that they need to wear a mask. I'm going to go back to prevention. As a public health specialist, first of all, prevention is always better than cure. The American public, African countries, we need to put on a mask in order to prevent ourselves from getting COVID. until we get a vaccine and a real cure for COVID, this is going to live with us, and we need to start getting adapted to the new norms. And also, right now, there are certain things that are available. Remdesivir is available if you're in the US or in Europe. We also know dexamethasone really works for COVID. We are using anticoagulations for patients who have severe disease. And there is also new data showing that interferon beta also has a good effect. There is a lot of research out there. There is research showing now that interleukin-6 do not really work, but we're waiting for more data. There is hope. There are some clinical trials going on in the NIH for new viral drugs, which are all RNA polymerase inhibitors. And we are hoping that we're going to get actually something comes out from them. There is also some adjuvant treatments which have been used, like vitamin D. We do have vitamin C that has been used. You need to also rest well, boost your immune system so that you don't get very sick. If you're sick, go to the hospital. There are so many other supportive care we can give to you in order to make you feel better. So prevention is better than cure. America is where it is today because they are stubborn. The country has been disgraced because they are not able to control a pandemic, and the leadership has not been that good. The leadership throughout this pandemic has been very poor. So people need to make sure that they put on a mask. A mask is going to protect you from infecting others, but there is also research showing that it protects you from getting infected, even with a regular mask right now.
Thank you.
Because the viral load matters.
And that has been Dr. Kenneth Former. All right, that's how we round off the show, but we're going to bring back our friend. All right, there you go. It announces him. Thank you, Dr. Kenneth Former, for coming on Chat Night Africa. Goodbye. And we bring back the thermostat in the room. This is Charlie Bumums, live from Michigan. Charlie Bumums. And that's it in Chat Night Africa. Charlie, I cannot thank you enough. Wow, people are having fun here today. They're fighting each other in the debate, but having fun. You see why I brought you on today, Charlie? Hello, Mr. Vamomsi.
Yeah, I see. Yes, hello. I said the heat was right up. It was up there. Yeah, it was hot.
And I didn't want anybody having hypertension.
I know. But I'm very happy that he had his facts. He had a lot of facts. So I'm very happy that he wasn't just speaking. He had his facts together. So that was great. I mean, we learned a lot when we have people that are very educated like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You're doing a terrific job. Again, where do people have this beautiful, drop dead beautiful songs? Where, again, repeat that just before you leave the platform. Where do people find it?
Just go to Google and Google Vumomse. 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 You will see every song that I have online.
Just
you can also go to every online music store. iTunes, yeah. Just Google VUMOMSE.
S-E.
S-E. Yes.
I got it. Just go on Google and put that name, and you will find Vamomsi in Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been. Thank you, Charlie, and good night.
I'm coming to get down. I'm coming to dance, We're gonna dance.
And that has been Chat Night Africa from Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. Go ahead, share, tag this broadcast.
We're gonna party
Chat Night Africa. We had transmission director Mumbalingwa.
This song right here, it's dynamite.
Our chief editor and director of social media platforms at Chat Night Africa, the Roger Full. Studio director, Beatrice Famunen. This is Chat Night Africa production assistants Emmanuel Wayindi, John Tanto, and Uncle Lot Benson at Frontier Street, Bamenda. Chat Night Africa special assistant Daniel Eno. Ladies and gentlemen, Chat Night Africa is compiled and presented by Divine Chamuka.
Attention.
Let's see à tout le monde. Goodbye to everybody. It was nice sharing a moment, your moment with us. Thank you again. Merci à tout le monde. Bye bye.
I'm ready to get down. I'm ready. I'm coming.